Hello, welcome back to Vaults Remastered. We're talking Weavling still. OM goodness. Vaults Remastered. That's the name of the show here. We're converting a 5th edition homebrew world known as Vaults and turning it into Pathfinder 2nd edition. This is the 4th episode of my Weavling Ancestry. If you haven't seen the other 3, what's wrong with you? Go ahead and subscribe to the channel already. Notify yourself with a little bell icon so you're not missing all the stuff and I can stop repeating myself so much. Anyway, session 4, Weavling Ancestry Feats. That's what this one's all about. This is my homebrewed version of the Chitine, a D&D monster. I am turning it into a Pathfinder 2nd edition Ancestry. This episode, Pulling Strings, we're going to look at the feats that I've created to go along with not just the ancestry itself, these spidery creatures, but also with the 6 heritages I just got done talking about in the 3rd session. I told you all about the Abyss Diver. I told you about the Brood Child, the Chaos Kissed, the Fey Skin, the Silk Spinners, and the Web Watchers. These are the lineages. These are the heritages for my weavelings. This is the various branches your PC can go down if you choose this ancestry for your player character. What remains is talking about the feats that go with these ancestries. If you don't know anything about feats and Pathfinder, these are the powers. These are the abilities, the things you pick up every time you level your character. You can get feats from your class, part of your background, I think, your skills, and your ancestries. And in my homebrewed world, the Vaults Remastered here, I have created another subset of feats known as heritage feats. Now, these aren't anything super special. They're just ancestry feats that you can take in lieu of a standard ancestry feat, but they are intimately tied with your heritages. The 6 I just showed you for this particular ancestry, the Weavling. So instead of grabbing a standard Weavling ancestry feat, you could take a heritage feat that has a prerequisite for your heritage and helps enhance that particular aspect of your character's you know bloodline, right? So here we go. What do we got? Going around the horn here. These are not in particular order because I had. Oh no, Puppy's getting upset. 1 second. All right, Puppy was getting upset that the neighbor just came home. Anyway, going around the horn, no particular order, kind of out of order, just because I had to move things around to make it fit nice and pretty on this screen here. In the upper left corner, we got Fey Whispers. This is the Fey Skin heritage feat. You could take this at level 1 rather than a standard ancestry feat for the Weavlings, which you're going to see next in a few minutes. So stay tuned. Your profound connection to your Fey-touched heritage grants you deep insights into Fey creatures, the first world, and environments influenced by Fey magic, making you a valuable source of knowledge on these subjects. In Pathfinder, the first world is a Fey-wild analog, I believe, to D&D, if you're familiar with that game system. You become trained in lore of Fey or first world checks. I'm kind of lumping those together. And you're also trained in nature. Training is a level of proficiency that gives you a +2 bonus on those skill checks. Lore would typically be an intelligence-based skill, and nature is, I believe, tied into wisdom. If you're already trained in either of those, you can pick something else. Once per day, you can draw upon your Fey connection to gain a +2 circumstance bonus on a skill check that involves your Fey lore or nature. It doesn't have to be specifically some knowledge about, Fey, right? It could be you're using nature for whatever you're using it for. And that just reflects your deep insight or recall of these types of knowledge that you would possess. Moving down, we've got Guardian's Instinct. This is a reaction. Your prereq, this is for the web watchers out there, that heritage. Your heightened senses and protective instincts allow you to swiftly create barriers to shield yourself and your allies from harm. You are able to use webbing. You're able to use, should be webbing, not two of webbing. You're able to use webbing to deflect or obstruct attacks. As a reaction, when you or an ally within 15 feet is targeted by a ranged attack, You can create a thin yet strong web barrier to provide cover. This imposes a -2 penalty to the attack roll. After using this ability, a web watcher needs to refocus for 10 minutes before regaining its use. Awesome. Moving to the middle here, Chaos Burst. It's a 2-action ability. Prereq, Chaos Kissed. So you have to have the Chaos Kiss heritage. Once per day, you're able to release a burst of chaotic energy, swirling in a 5-foot radius around you. All creatures in range must make a will save against your class DC or become frightened 1. On a critical failure, they are frightened 2. Controlled Descent. This is for the Abyss Diver heritage. Abyss Divers have mastered the art of controlled, rapid descents. They reduce fall damage by an amount equal to 5 times their level, reflecting their skill in safely navigating the treacherous drops into the abyss. So that is an always-on ability. Moving to the upper right corner, we have the Silk Spinner heritage feat. Obstructing Webs, another 2-action ability. You can spin a web to obstruct a passage or create a barrier that covers a 10-foot section of a corridor or doorway within 30 feet. The barricade creates difficult terrain and grants cover. To pass through, a creature must succeed on a reflex save against your class DC or spend double movement. On a critical failure, they become immobilized until they free themselves. The barricade lasts for 1 minute or until destroyed. It has a hardness of 10 and hit points of 20. This is probably a little bit OP. This is kind of like a web spell. I think I'm going to need to back this down a little bit. I'll probably just do some slowing rather than immobilizing. I think that would be the safest way to make this work. Web marker, or maybe it just provides cover. That could be an easy little thing. I think that might be a better, because I mentioned this in my last video. The Silk Spinner is ultimately going to get like the web spell as one of their ancestry abilities or ancestry feats. So I think just making this provide cover is probably a good, safe, interesting, cool way rather than obstructing. Maybe covering webs. That sounds easy enough, right? I'll go ahead and make that change off camera. Web marker is for the Brood Child. As an exploration activity, a Brood Child can create a trail of luminescent webbing useful for navigation and marking paths. The webbing is visible only to the Brood Child and those they designate, making it a discreet and strategic tool. The web trail can be maintained for up to 30 minutes initially, but the duration increases by 15 minutes for every 4 levels. After using this ability, the Brood Child needs to refocus for 10 minutes and reattune to, and this is the new version of Miska, if you've seen any of my earlier videos. This is Payenka, is my Lolth Miska analog for my Morshael and for these Weavlings. Anyway, 10-minute refocus, you get that ability back. And I'm not sure if heightened is the correct term here. Heightened, I think, typically refers to just spells or spell-like effects. So I don't know if this would qualify, but the idea is every 4 levels, you're going to get an extra 15 minutes. And maybe I've already said that, so I don't need that word in here, that phrase in there, so I probably can just delete that. But there you go. Those are the heritage feats. They tie into each of my 6 heritages thematically. They're unique from one another. They're unique from all the other feats. Although with obstructing webs, this is a bit similar to the web snare power that I gave my Silk Spinner in my my little heritage video I just shot last session. So I need to tweak this one. That's the only one I'm a little bit, yeah, that needs to be reworded. I think the screening webs or the covering webs would be a great little concept. You're able to kind of spew like a web that acts as cover, instant cover for you and your teammates. As long as there's something to anchor it to, I think you'll be good to go. So that would be a nice, I'm in the middle of the room and enemies are firing stuff at me. Oh my gosh, I need some cover, but I don't have anything close enough. You can shoot this up and make some cover. All right, so there you go. Those are my heritage feats. Moving on, we've got ancestry feats. I created 12. Again, the idea being unique, thematic feats. These ones are not specific to any of my heritages. These are just generic feats that go with the Weavling. So these spidery creatures that I've homebrewed here. So here we go. These are in alphabetical order. They're all level 1 feats. So they should be useful but not overpowered. They should be on par with some of the heritage feats you just saw, some of the heritage abilities, and the ancestry abilities that I looked at in my previous video. Anchoring limbs. This is extra. So, all right, I'm gonna reverse a little bit. So the ancestry, these weavlings, they've got 8 arms and legs like a spider. But in game mechanical terms, at level 1, I didn't want the creature to have use of all these arms because that would be a little bit overpowered, having like 6 arms to swing weapons and whatnot, right? Kind of crazy. So 2 of your limbs are your feet. You're walking on them. Those are kind of useless other than walking. You got your 2 standard, hands for manipulating weapons and shields and that kind of stuff. So casting spells like any other humanoid. And then they have 4 additional limbs that are, for all intents and purposes, just for show. They don't really do anything other than they help these guys climb, which is one of their ancestry abilities. Well, this feat starts to make those extra limbs useful. And you're going to see additional feats as I get through the level up process here. Feat 5, feat 9, feat 13. Maybe by feat 17 or so, you can use your 4 other arms and have like 6 freaking attacks going off. That would be totally insane, but at level 17, it would be, I think, appropriate. Anyway, anchoring limbs starts the process. So here's what it says. The extra spider-like limbs of your weavling heritage provide you with remarkable steadiness and grounding akin to living anchors. You gain a +2 circumstance bonus to saving throws against effects that would knock you prone. And it might not just be saving throws, it might be skill checks, something like that. Additionally, if you are subjected to an effect that would forcibly move you, like you're being pushed or pulled, you can use your reaction to make an athletics check against the DC of the effect. On a success, you reduce the distance you were moved by half. This reduction represents your extra limbs gripping the ground or nearby surfaces to anchor you in place. And I might even reword this so that on a critical success check, you're not moved at all. That might be a fun little thing, right? So yeah, I think I need to tweak this a little bit, but you get the idea. Arachnid empathy. Your deep connection with arachnids and other crawling vermin allows you to communicate with them in a unique way, and you've honed your senses to be more attuned to their presence. You can use the diplomacy skill to make an impression on and request something of spiders, insects, worms, and similar tiny subterranean invertebrates. The GM determines which creatures count for this ability. Additionally, you gain a +1 circumstance bonus to perception checks to sense the presence of such creatures within 35 feet and to survival checks to track them. This feat doesn't enable verbal communication but allows for a basic level of interaction that can be useful in various contexts, such as calming a hostile creature, asking for directions, or even seeking assistance. I was kind of thinking about saying like a swarm because being able to communicate with a little ant sound exciting. So maybe doing something with swarms, but then I didn't want it to be too overpowered where there's like a swarm monster coming at you attacking and you're just like, whoa boy, hold up, and the swarm stops attacking. So maybe a GM could rule that that would be something you might be able to do, but I thought it might be a little bit overpowered at this level. So I didn't specifically specify swarms on purpose. Cave Fisher's Reach. This is an attack, so it's going to trigger your attack penalty if you try to do multiple attack. It also has the Manipulate trait, so it requires your hands. Your mastery of silk allows you to emulate the hunting techniques of the cave fisher, using your webbing to ensnare foes from a distance. Requirements. You have at least 1 free hand and your target's no more than 1 size larger than you. As an action, you can make a ranged attack using your silk against a creature within 15 feet. This attack uses your acrobatics skill to hit and is against the target's reflex DC. So it's not a standard attack roll. It's an acrobatics, like you're trying to fish and catch maybe a moving target. They get a reflex DC save to prevent getting snagged. If they have a critical success, or you have a critical success, sorry. So it's, I guess, like a contested, so you're targeting their DC, they don't get a reflex save, you target the reflex DC. So if you have a critical success, critical hit, the target's restrained until the end of your next turn unless you move or the target escapes. So you're unable to like drag it with you, I guess. Excuse me. Success. The target's just grabbed until the end of your turn. And if you're not familiar with Pathfinder, grabbed is a thing. Restrained is a thing. Unless you move or the target escapes. So once you snag this thing, you can't go running around the room. Failure, your silk misses the target. Critical failure, your silk misses and you leave yourself open to counterattack. If the target's within range, they can make, reach of you. They can make an unarmed strike against you as a reaction. If they're, further away, then you don't need to worry about it. Chitinous resilience. Thanks to your naturally tough exoskeleton, you have developed an innate resilience to physical harm, a defensive adaptation essential for survival in the harsh environments of the Underearth. Once per day, when you take damage from a physical attack, you can use your reaction to activate your chitinous resilience. When activated, reduce the damage you take from that attack by an amount equal to your level. This damage reduction applies after all other applicable reductions, resistances, or immunities. So it has to be physical damage. I might need to clarify that because physical attack. What if it's a physical attack with fire? Does that count? You know, I'm thinking not. I'm thinking this should just be physical. Bludgeoning, slashing, piercing damage. So physical damage. It's not always on where it's like standard damage resistance, where you'd have the damage equal to half your level is typical damage resistance in Pathfinder 2E. It's equal to your level, so it's better than just standard damage resistance, but it's only once a day and it's a reaction, so it's going to cost you to use it. So that's why it kind of scales up pretty nicely, but it's only against physical damage once a day. And it's on top of any other damage reduction you might have. So let's say you did have damage reduction from a different source, that would add on top of this. But again, this is just one attack, physical damage only once a day. Maybe it needs to have a recharge, like a refocus to get it back. That could be possible if this is too weak. But then again, that might be too powerful. So I don't know. I'm kind of leaving it a little bit weak right now because I got to see how it plays out. But there you go. That's what it does. Next Ancestry Feats. We've got 4 more. Fey Warp Magic. The transformative magic of flesh warping, combined with your Fey heritage, has given rise to an unusual arcane ability. This blend of Fey blood and alchemical change manifests in a unique spellcasting talent. Choose one cantrip from the Arcana spell list. This represents a magical ability inherited from your Fey lineage, altered and shaped by the flesh warping process. You can cast this cantrip as an Arcana innate spell at will. The cantrip is heightened to a spell should be rank equal to half your level rounded up. All right, pretty standard fare you get a cantrip. Narrow Defender. Your experience navigating the cramped tunnels of the Underearth. Underearth, by the way, is kind of a global term for, I guess you would call it like the world, whereas the vaults is like a continent or a country in conceptual terms. At least for these people, because they don't really see the surface world as the world. They don't go up there. This is like the Underearth. This is where they live. All right, so your experience navigating the tunnels has honed your defensive instincts, allowing you to use the limited space to your advantage in combat. When you find yourself in narrow passages or tunnels, a space no wider than 5 feet, or just wide enough for you to pass through, I was kind of struggling with the wording of this because I don't want it to be part of like the squeeze action. Because if you're like that squished in there, yeah, you're not able to defend yourself. So it's, a 5 foot wide tunnel, or maybe a little bit where you can kind of turn sideways. Kind of give you that concept of, because maybe you get a little bit smaller than 5 feet, and somebody could, debate with you. Blah, I'm only 3 feet wide. Whatever, you get it's pretty much somewhere between a squeeze and the 5 foot sort of standard square on a map. If there's a tunnel, a hallway, something that's giving you solid protection on either side is kind of the other part of this. So it has to be a passage or a tunnel or a corridor. It can't just be a 5 foot, table on one side and a chair on the other. No, it's got to be confined space. You get a +2 circumstance bonus to your AC. So as a narrow defender feat, you'd want to get into a tight little space so you can defend yourself better. And that reflects your skill in using a restricted space to deflect attacks and shield yourself more effectively. Silk Skater. Your exceptional balance and agility allow you to navigate challenging terrains with ease, be it across webs or other precarious surfaces. Here's another example of an initial feat that Kathy was coming up with that was too niche. It was too, you wouldn't use it, but in 1% of the game maybe you had to be in webs. which while these creatures are living in webs normally, the typical game world is not going to have webs, right? You're going to be walking corridors and in a tavern, let's say. Anyway, your exceptional balance and agility allow you to navigate webs or other. So I revamped it so it's other precarious surfaces. So when moving across webs, you can do so at normal speed, at double your normal speed. So if it is webs, your natural habitat, silk skaters can move at twice the normal speed without having to do any acrobatics checks. You just you're going. Additionally, you gain a +2 circumstance bonus to acrobatics checks if you're using the balance action. I think it's a move action called balance. So yes, in Pathfinder, there's a specific action you take called balance, where you have to make an acrobatics check to, scuttle along little narrow beams or ledges or a surface, something like that. These guys get a +2 bonus to that. So if you look in the balance action under the acrobatics skills, you'll see more specific details about that. So that's what that's for. Sticky camouflage is the next feat. By coating your exoskeleton with webbing that collects debris, dust, fibers from the environment, you can effectively blend into your surroundings. So you're kind of like a walking dust mop. This, or a lint roller, right? This grants you a +2 circumstance bonus to stealth checks in environments where this camouflage is effective, such as like a fungal forest, dusty tunnel, crumbling cave, urban setting. There's lots of clutter and debris around. You can kind of get clutter, for cover for yourself. It works there. If you're like in a glassy, crystalline chamber, no. Something that's smooth or very clean, watery environment, no, it's not going to work. Okay, so it has to be something that's dirty and got stuff that you can get sticky sticks to. All right, then the last four are these. Tunnel Scout is a move action, so it has a move tag to it. You're adept at swiftly and deftly navigating the tight and twisting tunnels of the Underearth. When moving through narrow passages or tunnels no wider than 5 feet, but wide enough for you to pass through without squeezing. So I added that specifically to this one. I probably need to add that term to the other narrow defender here. Without squeezing, your speed increases by 5 feet. So again, if you're in a narrow little tunnel that's wide enough just for you, you can add an extra 5 feet moving faster. In addition, you gain the quick squeeze general feat, even if you do not meet the prerequisites to do so. I think it's normally training in acrobatics. So you don't need training in acrobatics. You have the quick squeeze feat already. But if you're not trained in acrobatics, you wouldn't gain those proficiency bonuses that training would give you. But you got the feat. All right, then vibration warning is the next one. Your skill at weaving webs extends to creating sensitive tripwires that alert you to the presence of intruders. You can set up a small area of webbing up to 60 feet in diameter as an early warning system. This setup takes 10 minutes. It's kind of like a ritual almost. When a creature touches or disturbs the web within this area, you receive a mental alert. This alert is strong enough to wake you if you're sleeping. The webbing used for this purpose is nearly invisible and requires a successful perception check against your class DC. Can I give out some props to Pathfinder for having this idea of class DC? Like in D&D, I don't know how many times this would come up where, your character's done something and then they're like, well, would the guy be able to see that? Because, I'm trained in nature and I made this little tripwire, and you're kind of thinking, well, how would I measure that? How would I measure what perception they would use? What would be the DC? And you kind of have this arbitrary, well, if it's average, it's a 10. If it's easy, it's a 5. If it's hard, it's a 15. You can, what number to use? Bam! Pathfinder's like, yo, you use class DC, duh. Okay, and the class DC levels up with that character, so it represents kind of their natural skills, I guess, with that particular class. So I like it. That's neat. Anyway, class DC covers a lot of those gray areas that D&D has. You can maintain only one vibration warning area at a time. Setting up a new one deactivates the previous setup. So it's a nice, like, let's say a campsite scenario. You might set this up. It's kind of like, I guess, sort of like the alarm spell. Webbed escape is the next one. Your ability to produce silk swiftly and in large quantities allows you to escape from confining situations. Think about this like a squid's ink. The silk is slippery and tough, making it difficult for captors to maintain their hold and allowing you a chance to quickly escape from their grasp. This is another reaction. I gotta put the reaction word up here. I don't have the symbols for Pathfinder, but when I make this in like a PDF, I'm gonna get the actual symbols for actions and whatever. Anyway, once a day when you're grabbed, again, remember this is a Pathfinder actual condition or whatever, you're grabbed, you're restrained, you're immobilized. You can use your reaction to release this burst of silk to instantly free yourself from the condition. I don't know if this is OP or not. I'm kind of hemming and hawing. Maybe it gives you a bonus on that save, but I figure it's only once a day, so it's kind of restricted, and you have no way to recharge it outside of a normal, 8-hour rest. So I think it's kind of fair. Yeah, it's powerful, but it's a one a day. That's all you can do at once. So somebody boom grabs you, you bam, you're out of there. If you get grabbed again, well then you're screwed, and you have to do your standard escape from there. All right, webbed recovery is the last one. This one's kind of the weirdo of the group, maybe, but it's and you need some weirdos. You need a little magical thing. You can tap into the residual flesh warp alchemy in your veins to weave a web that accelerates your healing. So I kind of picture this that part of that alchemical treatments was this or the idea of like a rapid cell division healing regeneration to purge the tarnishing from the Morshael who are being blackened and their hair bleached by the presence of or being stuck here in my Darklands vaults location. So anyway, I kind of anticipate or envision that power still within your blood if you've taken this feat. So once a day, you can spend 10 minutes to create a web structure, like a little cocoon, I guess, that covers a 5-foot square. And you can snuggle up in this. You can rest in this web for 8 hours and regain hit points as if you had spent a day of downtime resting, plus an additional D6. So typically, I think you got to spend like a 24 hours, blah, 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 to get hit points back. Like, by the way, if you haven't played Pathfinder 2E, and I haven't played very much myself, especially sort of the downtime resting things, if you get wounded and you're all beat up, you don't just, oh, I'm going to take a long rest and everything's back to full. No. It's kind of like old school. You got to like spend actual downtime resting and healing to get back, your wounded condition stuff and your full hit points, unless you got magical healing. If you got magical healing, then you can bypass this. But otherwise, you got to suck it up back in town or in camp and rest for hours and hours and days potentially. This speeds up your recovery. The web dissolves after you use it or after 24 hours, whichever comes first. So it's a once a day thing. And you got to snuggle up in it for 8 hours. So if you get interrupted, you don't get the benefit. All right, there you go. That is my complete set of ancestry feats and my heritage feats, which are ancestry feats. They just have the heritage as a prerequisite. So I have created 16 complete feats for my Weavling Ancestry. That is, if you look at the Pathfinder book, way more than the typical Pathfinder Ancestry is going to provide you, especially with the remaster having just dropped. The books right now have 8, maybe 10 feats you can choose from first level. So I'm like doubling what the book is giving you. Now I know Pathfinder, if you add in all their other stuff pre-remaster, all their expansions, they had roughly about a dozen feats per ancestry. So, I'm not like doing anything special, but just right out of the box, my players are going to have access to a whole bunch of feats, and they're going to have obviously higher level feats that I'm going to give them extras to choose from as well. And the heritage feats, there's going to be another 6 for 5th level, 9th level, etc. as you move on. So I'm going to have a lot of feats for them to choose from, probably more than they want, because they're going to be going crazy that they can't pick everything, right? There's a lot of juicy choices. All right, and then that takes us to the end, my friends. We're going to wrap this up with, hey, what's going on next session? I already spoiled this if you watched my previous episode on the Weavlings there, talking about the ancestry and heritages in the first place. But we're going to go back to the Worm Seed. I left you hanging with them. These were my Dragonborn remaster that I'm doing for Pathfinder 2nd Edition, and I left off having introduced the ancestry to you. I wanted to get into the heritages for them. What are the heritages? What are the mechanics for my worm seed, my gem dragonborn, my facet worm seed, as I call them in the vaults? What did I come up with? What crazy ideas are there? And then we'll follow that up with similar video to this one. The feats. What ancestry feats do my worm seed have? And which ones tie into the heritages? I will give you a little hint. Uh, the heritages are way more important in my worm seed than in any of my other ancestries outside of maybe my shard mind remaster known as the Orth. Another spoiler. But you're gonna have to tune in to see. So hey, how do you tune in? Well, you subscribe to the channel, right? This way you know when the little alert pops up, hey, you have a subscribed channel has a new video. Or the notification bell that'll send you a little dingy ding telling you, hey, that dude just put out another awesome session for me to go and check out. Of course, you can comment and share your thoughts on everything. You can like the video to show your support of what I'm trying to do here, which is taking that old D&D game and turning it into Pathfinder game. Because if you're watching this and you're enjoying Pathfinder yourself, don't you want more of us out there? More old DMs going, man, I got this huge world. How do I turn it into a Pathfinder game? Oh, it's too much. I need to stick with D&D. No, you don't. You can do it. It does take work, let me tell you. But hopefully these videos are helping you guys and gals out there that are thinking about it, or you're just a player and you're getting into Pathfinder Second Edition and you want to know more about ancestries and lore and how you go about heritages and all that sort of thing. Maybe there's some cool ideas I'm throwing out here that you want to have your GM come and take a look at to see if they're interested in using one of these ancestries. I'd be more than happy to provide the full, everything that I've got for people that request it. Just go ahead and put it down there in the comments or send me a PM or whatever. All right. I'm done. I'm going to take a break. This is my second video of the day. Hopefully these were good for you. I'll catch you in the next one going back to the worm seed. Have a good night. Take care.